Good evening. This is the December 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Economic and Community Development Committee. I am your host, Josh Goldstein. With us tonight, council members Lisa Shanahan, um, Jim Freyer, Jalen Seed, and Mayor-elect Barbara Smith. Am I missing anybody?
Ann Western, Nicole
Uh,
Eady.
Nicole Eady is present. Councilmember Nicole Eady is present. Again, sorry, I just for some reason I have a setting where I can't see people who aren't like whose camera isn't on. So my bad.
And Ann
And Ann
Winstrand too.
Wennerstrand is also present. I see her as well. Okay, and
Jalen as
obviously we
well.
what?
Jalen is there too. And if you say him.
Yeah, I thought I said his name
Oh,
earlier.
sorry, my
Oops,
bad.
sorry. Nope. Okay. Okay. So, and obviously we have many distinguished members of our staff here on the call. And let's move on to acceptance of the meeting minutes from the special meeting of October 9th. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Smith. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, any
I have to
abstentions?
abstain.
Yep, okay, I figured that's what that was. All right, so four yeses, one abstention. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comment on regarding, again, rules 3 minutes and related to an item on the agenda? Are there any members of the public who wish to make public comment? If so, now is the time. I see one member, Diane Cece. Um, I don't know if she's been promoted to able to speak.
Excuse me.
Your
Good
three
evening.
minutes start now.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Just hopping on quick for the agenda item for the new um, looking to see what you're calling it here, the online permitting and licensing system for the city. And I had a couple of comments and a question. The memo that came from Mr. Habansky dated November 24th to the committee and the council. This from a technical point of view, everything listed in there has the proposed vendor as Main Star. And when I tried to find anything on that, I couldn't. And then when I went back to the records, you've probably already noted this, but apparently it's a typo. The company is Maint, like maintenance, Maint Star. And you may want to correct that just so that anyone who's doing any of their own due diligence or doing a search, unfortunately, when these things are records and then we do searches, it doesn't always come up as a hit. And this is going to be a miss unless you can redo this memo from Mr. Habansky and get that in the record. So I just wanted to point that out. But then I also had a question on when this says the online permitting and licensing system, it would lead a mere mortal resident like myself to think that this is something that people from the outside would be using to apply for permits and licensing. If that's not correct, you can stop me now and I'll wish you a good night. Okay, so I will continue. Oh, by the way, I'm speaking as myself. I'm coming up as ENNA, but I'm on here for myself, just for the record. And so I was curious if there's a list available or if you could address it tonight for everyone that took part in the selection committee. Because again, on Mr. Habansky's memo, I'm only seeing internal city departments as having been a part of that group. And if it's intended for the public and developers and property owners and contractors and tradespeople to use this new tool, I'm wondering why they wouldn't have been a part of the committee. I realize we're not allowed to have a dialogue with you, but I will stay on in the hopes that at least that question gets answered. And my point with that, I think, is, obvious. If this is something for outside use and not just internal between all the departments, I'm wondering why no one would have been included, or if they were, if you can tell me who they were, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? And I also would like to note that Councilmember Darlene Young is here, and she arrived a few minutes ago at 6:04. Seeing none, I am going to close public participation. And for our first item, under Economic and Community Development, item 1, authorize the mayor, Haley Railing, to execute an agreement with MaintStar for project number 4435, Community Development Software and Services, for an amount not to exceed $500,000 to implement a new online permitting and licensing system. Account number noted. Jay, the floor is yours. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I have to ask for a motion. Lisa. Been doing this for 2 years. I still don't know how to ask for that. Jay, you're up.
Thank you, council members. Jay Hibansky, Chief Economic and Community Development for the City of Norwalk. So as you are all, well, first I want to tip my cap to Ms. Cece for the autocorrect. That looks like it corrected all of the red underlined MaintStar references and had it changed to the incorrect name. So good catch. This process started back in October of 2024, the city of Norwalk. And I think that, this had really been going on the idea had been going on for quite some time prior, in an effort to try to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the permitting system here at the city of Norwalk, as well as our licensing system that are operated by or issued by departments like the health department. So in 2024, the city hired Barry Dunn Consulting Services to do an environment assessment, essentially to kind of get a feeling of how things operated currently, get a baseline, and then really work with staff to develop an appropriate workflow so that we know the city had an idea of what needs it had for its platform. Once that was complete, and Barry Dunn worked with many departments, an RFP was drafted, and we had 11 respondents that came in, so it was very competitive. We shortlisted those to 5, which traveled from all over the country to Norwalk and did all day presentations to really show how the platform worked. And so all staff that would be involved in the permitting and licensing system could see how it operated and the capabilities to ensure that we would be selecting the right system. After sitting through 5 all-day workshops and presentations, and I really commend the staff for dedicating their time to doing that, because you really can't, you look at these 50-page proposals that came in, and it's really difficult to get a feel for whether or not the system is going to address the needs that the city had. So I really commend the staff for dedicating so much time when there's very little time in the day to sit through those presentations and really get a feel for what we were looking at. Once that was completed, all the different departments, and I'll just quickly mention the departments that were involved in evaluating the committee that was involved in evaluating the proposals, include building code, business development and tourism, the health department, IT, planning and zoning, public works, TMP, police department, fire marshal's office, and I think mayor's office might have been at some of those as well. So we really tried to get everyone involved to have a look and to get, to weigh in. So if we have any further questions, I'm happy to answer them. Our consultant, Austin Nichols from Barry Dunn, was nice enough to attend this meeting because this project kind of spans a good half year prior to my arrival, and he might be able to answer any of the historical questions or details that you might have. So with that, I will turn it back over to you all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Jay or Austin, or any comments that they want to make? Councilmember Freyer.
Okay, Jay, how scalable is this going to be? I'm thinking about, there's no mention of Board of Ed. Not that I know whether there's any need for the Board of Ed to be addressing any of the capabilities here, but how scalable is this software? Can we add, I can't think of an example right now, but some other department decides that they want to issue permits for something that we're not already doing it. We have the capabilities of adding another department into this. Will it be robust enough to be able to scale it up to include more users?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I hesitate to say it's infinitely scalable, but it's scalable to the point where it could encompass every department, every government or quasi-government agency associated with the city of Norwalk. So, I mean, if there was some sort of each department really had somewhat similar and overlapping, I think, desires for a platform, but a lot of very unique requirements. And so while some want to use it for maybe taking in of public hearing items, I mean, I would say a good example would be something like the committees could essentially receive applications for review, and you can schedule. While other departments really will want to use an inspection scheduling service that would be included with the MaintStar platform. You could do everything from tracking sanitary sewer lines. So there's the short answer is it would be scalable to meet virtually any city department that would be interested. It might increase the cost. Might increase the cost based on what increase in services that we would need. So, but we feel really comfortable that they're going to be able to meet the vast majority of the city who's been involved in the selection process so far.
Okay. How about the question that Diane Cece brought up? How much education do outside the public users need to use the system? Is it pretty pretty easy to pick it up? Is it intuitive to the unskilled user?
Well, I think that's a good question. So we did not have the general public participate as part of the selection committee. That was all city staff who would be essentially the back end in making sure that the resources are really there to take advantage of the system, and that the system had the resources to make it effective for day-to-day work. So we didn't have any general public or contractors or developers as part of this. Now, I can tell you, this is the third online permitting system that I have in the process of implementing. And so that was one of the key, when we were discussing these presentations from our 5 shortlisted firms, making sure that they presented really the full capability, full build out of their platform, so that not only could we see it from the back end and the staff perspective, but we could see it from the public perspective. It's such an important part of the selection process, is making sure that we're choosing something, like you said, that's intuitive to use. And I can tell you that some of the folks, that was a part of the deciding factor for some of the platforms that were in the running, was how intuitive were they to use. And so that was really a key criteria for selection for the committee. And so, look, when you change from a paper system to a digital permitting system, The largest challenge really is for your staff who has been doing this something for 30, 35 years, right? And so your regulars who come in, your frequent flyer contractor, your electrical contractor, your carpenter, it'll be an adjustment for them. But, it's the way I equate these systems, and I think the one that we have chosen is no different, very much like signing up for something like Facebook. It's creating a username, a password, your profile, and then it's essentially, now what would you like to do? So they're pretty easy to use, but there will be an adjustment period. Once you get 6 months, and this is the same with both systems that I've done already. Once you're 6 months in the growing and you've experienced the growing pains, you wonder how you did it any other way.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I know there's other communities around us who have online permitting, how did you look at what other, what software other communities were using? Contractors and developers, they're used to these in other communities. Will it be, similar or a completely different kind of process for them?
Yeah, and so in all honesty, many of the platforms are all very similar, right?
Mhm.
They offer a lot of the same. They perform a lot of the same ways. I think one of the main deciding factors, and Steve, if I'd love to hear your opinion on it, if you'd like to share it, how it looked was really a deciding factor in choosing Mainstar. And so we had references from multiple different municipalities that have used not only Mainstar but the other folks that were in the running. And I think you get a lot of the same we had a lot of the same feedback from all of the references, which was implementation was a challenge, but it was the best thing that they could have done for their process. So,
Well, it's all good. I think we've waited a long time for this. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So, okay, thanks.
I just want to, if there aren't any comments, I just wanted to jump in for a second. I just wanted to spell out, because I can't remember, and forgive me if this wasn't discussed, Jay, in your initial remarks, but just to give people a sense of what the timeline is from now, because it's, I know you and I talked about this, but I think it would be good for people to know what to expect in terms of when this kind of thing will be beginning to be live and, can be utilized here in the city. So I don't know if you or Austin want to take that one, but I think giving people an expectation of what's coming next would be a good thing here.
Yeah, great question. And even before I get to that, I just wanted to address we do have the opportunity to offer trainings to our frequent flyers, our contractors, our regulars, and offer pre-recorded trainings for anyone that is interested, or a first-time user, a homeowner. There will be lots of links for how to use the system. So I just wanted to make sure that will be available as we continue to unroll the system. And I'm sorry, remind me your
Timeline. Like
Oh,
what
the timeline,
happens
right.
next? Implementation, when will this be live?
So the goal is for this project to be live in 10 to 12 months in its totality. Now, I've done 2 of these prior, and my recommendation, and we've already confirmed this with Mainstar during the BAFO, the best and final offer process, that in my experience, rather than going for the big bang, open up everything all at once, and staff is running around trying to figure things out, maybe being a little overwhelmed, that each department really try to get their core permitting permit. And I'll just use, for example, the building permit, dialed in, and so that we have some time to work and get accustomed to the workflow. And we're going to be tweaking and adjusting this once those initial permits go live. My hope is that 6 months from finalizing the contract with Mainstar, that we are live with portions of our permitting system, and that way we can slowly dip our toes into this, get staff comfortable with using the system, and then we just continue to build out. But ultimately, the short answer is 10 to 12 months from now, we anticipate to have a majority of the licensing and permitting system live. 6 months, I would love to have each department have some of their core permits ready to go and rolling, and so they can troubleshoot.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, this is something that we've been very excited about for a long time. This is something that started, um, sorry, Councilmember Seed, you go before I go.
Sorry, yeah, I had a question because I know, and this is it all sounds great, and I know a lot of it is like applying for the permits. But do MateStar is it going to be a capability to see like the permits that have already been pulled that might be open? That like you say you're not trying to pull a permit, but just to see like for a certain property you could look up because I know like in Stanford and Greenwich they use I believe like OpenGov, and there you could like search a property and you could see like if there's any open permits, or also like if there's been like a permit pulled for like a certain job. Is that going to be able to be looked at on MateStar?
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly a capability for Mainstar, and that was one of the criteria that we wanted to make sure that we could even populate historic data. And I know planning and zoning is currently undergoing. You'll hear maybe a little bit more about it tonight later on in the agenda. A historical scanning project where things like old site plans, old approval letters can be uploaded to a property, so that let's just say there's a title searcher, there's a transfer of a property, and or the property is going to be transferred. You can do a title search, and essentially you create a username and password for our platform. You search the property 125 East Avenue, and all of the open, closed permits should show up. And then what other data that we migrate into the platform will show up as well. Ultimately, you would love to start seeing as much in there. You could have, FEMA records potentially there. Some of that stuff can get a little sensitive, but violation notices, there's really no end to what type of data that you want to put on there. And obviously we would get advice from, city attorney's office about what we want to make public and what we don't. But it's really endless in terms of the capabilities for what type of data you can migrate in there and look at open and closed permits.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I know just like for like people in the trade and also like real estate, that'd be just something that's good because you just look it up and see what's kind of going on. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh, I had one more question. I noticed in the background, background of the information that was out there, that part of the process when you did the RFP was to go through and do a process flow analysis to find out what the procedural steps were in each department. Was there anything that changed in the way we process permits or any of the procedures that were documented that led to changes in how we do things or improving how we do things? Were there any efficiencies picked up?
And so I'm going to turn that over to either Austin or Steve. But what I can tell you, Jim, is that the process will probably continue to be streamlined as we are working through getting these permits to go in preparation for them to go live. I think that until you're really playing with the workflows, it's hard to really conceptualize, well, do we want it to be one step at a time where it's one department in the subsequent department can't have a look until the prior department approves? Or are we going to say, let's release this permit to a batch of departments So there can be concurrent reviews happening at one time for similar departments, and then you have a final approver, like maybe a building department will be the final look, but you can have concurrent reviews happening to kind of increase the speed. Steve or Austin, Steve, I see your hand up, so I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, and to answer Mr. Frere's question a little different way too, I think great. Jay nailed most of the points. The thing I got most excited about with the process was I think the online permitting is great and is definitely what we need to do. Mapping out the process was the most important piece of this to me, because when we started, I don't think we really had a well-defined great process, and I think that's what you'll see more of this after the permit software is implemented, that the flow is better. There's not going to be questions about who's reviewing what, when, where's the paperwork. I think that kind of goes away. I mean, I've done permitting in many other towns where with online permitting, and actually it's a pretty simple process for the applicant. So it's just basically, a lot of times you upload the documents and then those individual departments are going through and checking the box to make sure the required submittals are there. They get back to you. It's a pretty good flow of information, I think, and also pretty seamless. And I think Jay's idea of kind of taking baby bites at the apple of this to make sure, it's all working before we just kind of release it all in one big batch, and then, hopefully everything goes smooth, but that way you don't, you kind of avoid those big pitfalls.
That's the answer I was hoping to get, was that, is there a capability if I'm going in and getting a permit, and I'm a repeat customer, but I might go into another department, will the ability be there to access my historical information, that I don't have to refill out another form every time I walk in there. So it knows who I am. It says, okay, yeah, here's Jim Ferrer again. He's always doing these plumbing jobs someplace or whatever. But all of a sudden he's doing some other kind of electrical job, but I have his background information in there. Okay, great.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think gets a lot of the staff excited about this, there's nothing worse than getting a call from someone who has a permit and says, I don't know where I am. I don't know where it's held up. Staff looks in their paperwork and says, you're good with us, but I don't know where to send. Here are the 9 departments you can now check with to see where you are stuck. And so with this system, any department, any staff member can just log in and say, okay, oh, you're good with our department, but I can see the fire marshal made a comment that said they're waiting on a plan from you. Call the fire marshal, see what they need, and that way you can keep marching forward. I think that everyone has felt like a ping pong ball at some point in any city hall. I've felt about it. I felt the same way in town hall where I live, where you just don't know where things stand. And this really eliminates that. And I think it reduces the likelihood of that city hall ping pong being bounced around, not knowing where things stand.
Great, great.
Well, all I have to say is this.
Mr. Goldstein.
No, I mean, look, I think there are a lot of good questions, but I just want to bring it back to, we did an efficiency study 3 years ago, and this was one of the central recommendations and one of the major pitfalls that residents and businesses, contractors interact with the city, cited as a major inefficiency. And this is the fix. And said there are a number of communities that have made the step already. I think it's great that we're making this step. I'm grateful, and Jay, I think you mentioned this, but this came under budget. And that's also great and worth noting. And I think that this is a very positive step in the right direction, and something that a lot of residents and businesses and contractors have been looking for some time. One thing, since it's not really a substantive fix, we will make the change so it says Maint Star on the actual item when it goes to the full council, assuming it passes right now. But since it's not a substantive change, I don't think we actually need to vote to change the agenda item. So with that said, all in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you for your support,
Oh,
everyone.
and Heather Dunn's here. And she voted in support. Heather, sorry, I did not track when you arrived, but Councilmember Heather Dunn is in attendance. Okay. Next item under B, Planning and Zoning. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to increase the contract with ARC Document Solutions for an amount of $2,495 to include GIS customization and a public access module, account number noted. Do I have a motion? Jim? Steve?
Sure. And this, while this is small in price tag, I think it's mighty in impact, I hope,
Yes.
at least over time. So this kind of dovetails nicely with what Jay was just going over. For a while, we've had these records, and Mr. Frere brought it up with the last meeting. I think Mr. C did as well, about you have historic records and how do they get looked at, and is there access? So like our existing permitting software has records, and those will get incorporated into the new permit software. But we also have records that the city did permits on dating back to the 20s and 30s that are not incorporated into the permit software. They're just paper files sitting down in the basement, which is kind of ripe for any kind of disaster to befall them. Those records are accessed by contractors, attorneys, title searchers who are doing historical research on a property, and potential homeowners who kind of want to know what the history of the house is, were there permits taken for this, when was this done. More specifically, the tax cards are used kind of on a daily basis by the title searches as well as staff, because we're looking at things. One thing that pops up is kind of an enforcement end too, on apartments. How many legal units are in this building? And sometimes we have to rely on the historic tax cards because they're the only record we have that indicates that in 1960 there were 4 units there, and then 1970 there were 4 units there, and all of a sudden you get to 1980 and there's 6 units there, and you're like, well, wait a minute, was there a permit between 1960 and 1980 to add these 2 units? And then we can go back and check that against the building permit records, and it's really a good fact check. So what we've been working on over the last 12 months or so is scanning those historic tax assessment field cards. There were 4 years that were done, and I think it's 29, 56 or 58, 72, and 83. All those tax cards have been scanned. The images look really good. They're very clear and easy to use. As I think I laid out in my memo, there's one little tricky thing which we're working on, like an explanatory text to go with the tax cards, because at different times in the past, the city classified the properties different. So everybody's got an address for their properties, like City Hall is 125 East Avenue, but it's also got something called a district block and lot, which is the real way that we locate and identify a property, just because like you could subdivide your property potentially and you might have 2 addresses. So it's always good to have that district block and lot as backup. But at different times, the city decided to use different nomenclature. So they had like a district map block and lot. So there might be 4 identifiers for a particular tax year versus 3. So we're putting a little text together to kind of help people guide them through the different tax years so they're not getting frustrated when they're trying to search. But I've used it several times already on just like a beta test to just try to find tax cards, and it's pretty easy to search on. So assuming the contract goes forward, we're hoping to have this up and live by the end of the calendar year. We'll link it to the tax assessors page, the P&Z page, and probably building, and start getting people in that direction. And hopefully over time, as the permit software is up and live, all these data sources can be linked together, kind of maybe towards what Mr. C was talking about, where you kind of have this one-stop shop where all the historical data that's available on a property is accessible to the site, accessible to somebody looking for it. And I think just saves the city time, it saves the public time, it saves money, it allows us to focus on other things. So I think it's just a kind of a good tool going forward. And like, as I think I put in my memo, we're already up until the 1970s on the building permits scanning. We're going to put those live once they're all scanned. Unfortunately, as you go forward with the building permits, there's a lot more records as you get, the ages get closer. So once those are all done, those will be linked as well. And then we'll start on the historic zoning permits. And we're hopefully in the next year or 2 to get that kind of wrapped up. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions? Nope. All right. All in favor? That is unanimous. Heather? Yes.
Great.
Um,
Happy
all
holidays.
right. Thank you, Steve. And for our last two items of the night, transportation, mobility, and parking. Item one, authorize the Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking to amend the agreement with NYCon Corporation for traffic on-call services for an amount not to exceed $175,000. Account numbers noted. Do I have a motion? Someone, please. Barbara or Darlene. Barbara got one earlier. Um, I don't know who's presenting. Jim, is it Fred? Is it Nell? Who's the presenter?
Hi, Councilperson. Yeah, so this one I'm going to have Fred to then give you an update. I think it's a pretty simple one. It's just a correction from a previous
Yes,
contract you guys approved.
correct.
So,
Yeah.
Fred, you want to take over?
Sure. So this was an RFQ that recently we put out for the traffic signal emergency services for, all of our traffic signal, which were close to 100. So the amount that we anticipate was not correct. Basically, this is a 3 years contract with an option of extension for another 2 years. So we're requesting $175,000 to be able to keep up with all the emergency situation that we are going to have for the next 3 years for all of our traffic signals and all the equipment included.
Anyone have any questions for Fred? Seeing none, all in favor? Jalen, Heather, are you okay? All in support. Okay. All right. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred.
Last item, and I'm sorry because I just forgot who wrote which memo off the top of my head. So my apologies. Item 2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into any and all documents and agreements required by Connecticut Department of Transportation to accept grant funding under the Community Connectivity Grant Program. Do I have a motion? Jalen. Nell.
Yeah, so it is. So it is Dell. Let me just give a little background. So you're right. It is Dell. I'll give you a little background to this, and I asked Nell to join us today to speak to it. So this was Nell's first grant that she wrote on behalf of the department, on behalf of the city, and we are very excited to have been awarded one of the top grants coming out of CTDOT. So I think she should be the one to speak for her submission of an excellent grant. So Nell, why don't you take it over?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I don't know if I've had the chance to meet everyone. I'm Nell. I'm the traffic analyst. So this grant is for essentially continuing the current phase 1 construction of the Wall Street corridor improvements. So currently there's construction between about Main Street to Brook Street on Wall Street, and this would be continuing those pedestrian improvements, street lighting, streetscape improvements from Brook Street up to East Avenue. So it's the portion near the park, and it will also be where the first gateway arch is for the Wall Street, which the community got to vote on, which is pretty exciting to kind of see that community and public participation kind of take fruition into our grant programs. As a part of this, there will be a public meeting that is organized and held. So we're very excited about it. We got awarded in full $800,000. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions for Nell? Well, all I have to say is good job. This is, I mean, look, this is a huge investment and a huge project that's going to utterly transform this neighborhood, and any help we can get from the state government makes the burden on our residents easier, and they will still get to be the beneficiaries of something pretty extraordinary. So thank you for securing nearly $1 million. I mean, it's 800,000, but I'm going to round up. To helping make that happen. And thanks for, I know this is your first time appearing before us, I think.
Yes,
So,
it is.
so really great job, great memo. Jalen? Yeah, right. District 8 council person. All right, put your hand down.
Yeah, not really a question, but I said it before, but I just want to thank TNP for all their work with this and like really fulfilling like 70-year-old promise to the neighborhood of Wall Street. That is really going to be revitalized, and now it's really coming to fruition. So this is just another part of that. And just thanks again for all your work that you're doing, not just on Wall Street, but all around Norwalk and especially in District A.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jalen. Barbara?
Yeah, once again, kudos to TMP and well done, Nell, and welcome to the team. Great job. Jalen hit the nail on the head. The Wall Street community has been waiting decades for this, and so it's so great to see it happen. I've spent a lot of time recently talking to a lot of the business owners there, and they're just so thrilled. The community is really coming together, so it's really, really exciting. Good job, everyone.
Thank you.
With that, all in favor? That is unanimous. All right. Anyone want to make a motion?
Thank you, everyone.
Jim?
I'd move that we adjourn.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good
Good night.
night.
Thank you.
Take care.